Hey, welcome to the first Reclaim review. As you can tell from the title, this is a review for God of War on PS4. If you haven't played the game yet, all I can say is I recommend you go check it out right now. I love it. But this review is going to be full of spoilers, so if you don't want it spoiled for you, now's your chance to get out. This is my first God of War game I've played all the way through. I played bits and pieces of the original 3 and Ascension on a friend's PS3. I've seen the entirety of their stories played out, but I was too young for the PS2 version. I didn't own a PS3 myself, and even when God of War 3 was remastered for the PS4, I couldn't bring myself to go back and play it because I knew how it ended. I didn't find Kratos that compelling, nor was the character designed to be back then. But it seems Sony Santa Monica has taken a different approach for God of War PS4. From the very beginning, I could tell this game was going to be special. I played on a PS4 Pro favoring performance, so the first thing I noticed was the beautiful graphics and the silky smooth 60 frames per second. Rarely did the game dip in frames, and when it did, there was a ton of stuff happening on the screen, so it was forgivable. The next thing I noticed was the brilliant sound design and score. I can't say enough about Bear McCreary's score. I've listened to it multiple times all the way through, and I'm sure I will again. It does an excellent job of enhancing every scene it's playing over, and it never feels out of place.
Whither do they call to me? She's ready.
The game begins with Kratos about to cremate his recently deceased wife. Well, I actually don't remember if the game ever acknowledges that they're married, but she is at least the mother of Kratos' child, and it's clear that she meant a great deal to him. As I said, Kratos does have a child now, Atreus. The main mission of the game is to spread his mother's ashes at the top of the highest peak in all the realms. Obviously, other distractions and shenanigans ensue, being that this is a video game, but Kratos and Atreus' goal is always to get to that peak. It's a very personal story that lets you experience the beautifully realized Norse wilds and epic lore in a very grounded way. So, it looks good, it sounds good, and the story is captivating from the jump. But it is a video game after all, so how does it play? Well, I can say with confidence that even though those other aspects of the game are phenomenal, the combat is where this game shines the brightest. Every attack has weight to it, and it feels good. Don't even get me started on the throwing. Your Leviathan axe functions similarly to Thor's hammer Mjolnir, in that you can throw it at an enemy and then recall it whenever you want with the push of a button. It allows for some awesome combos where you can fight unarmed and raise your enemy's stun meter, which, once full, lets you go in for a cinematic brutality kill. You can even heavy throw your axe and it'll freeze some enemies in place. Later on in the game, you acquire your old Blades of Chaos after you realize you have to go to Helheim to save your son, and are told your axe will do no damage to the denizens of Hell. And even though the blades make a late appearance, they are still treated fairly equally with the Leviathan axe in terms of upgradability. Fighting with Atreus is an unexpected treat, especially after getting some upgrades for his tree. He's not just in the way, and he's much more useful than your companions usually are in similar games like this. He'll climb on an enemy's back and distract them so you can come in for that sweet cleave, or maybe so you can go try and find a Hellstone in a particularly tough fight. He even has armor that lets him throw you a Hellstone every once in a while your health is critical. Rarely was he out of position and not able to do something I needed him to do. Well, except for that one section of the game.
Truth. The truth. I am a god, boy. From another land far from here. When I came to these shores, I chose to live as a man. But the truth is, I was born a god. And so were you.
That's right. Atreus was unaware he was half god, and when Kratos decided to be honest with him to help cure his sickness, Atreus responds by basically turning into a little shit.
Oh, I can tell you a thing or two about family matters.
Let me guess. Your brother isn't as talented as you, and his work is junk.
Those things are accurate. Your point?
It's all you ever talk about, over and over. Do something about it or shut up already.
I see.
Yeah! We're sick of hearing about little people's little problems.
I wanted to punt his disrespectful ass across the room during most of this section, but I do love the way Sony Santa Monica handled it. When I tell him to do something, he'd respond with whatever instead of the usual sir. And sometimes he would even ignore me when I was spamming the square button telling him to shoot something. It was aggravating, but I do appreciate the attention to detail. Eventually, Kratos puts him in his place and he goes back to being a good boy.
You will listen to me and not speak a word. I am your father, and you, boy, are not yourself. You are too quick to temper. You are rash, insubordinate, and out of control. This will not stand. You will honor your mother and abandon this path you have chosen.
The game can be very difficult at times. I started on normal difficulty and I thought it would be enough, but after a few hours in, I started getting upgrades for my gear and abilities, and I decided to bump it up to hard for the remainder of the game. And let me tell you, I was not prepared. The combat becomes very methodical in this difficulty, and I failed a lot. I can't even imagine how hard the God of War difficulty is. But every time I died, I rarely felt that the game had slighted me, and instead I thought about where I fucked up and what I needed to do to make sure it didn't happen again. I want to talk about the Blades of Chaos a little more. The build up to you getting them is awesome. As you're returning home to get the blades, you start to see Athena, and she reminds you that you'll always be a monster and yada yada yada. Look, I have no real nostalgic connection to Kratos or God of War, but this game does such an amazing job of transporting you into this world that I understood the gravity of this situation, if only from Kratos' facial expressions and touches. And because of that, I was pretty damn hyped to wrap those chains around my arm again, even if it was because things were dire.
Always be a monster.
I know. But I am your monster no longer.
The Leviathan axe is still my weapon of choice in God of War, but the introduction of the blades changes combat drastically. The slower paced methodical style of the axe is the exact opposite of the blades, which seems to bring back the hack and slash style of the originals a little more, but they evolve it around the combat in this game. The game's various skill trees and armor aren't as deep as something as you might find in a full-blown RPG, but there's enough here to make it interesting and worthwhile. In fact, some of the game's most useful moves are attained through these trees. The boss fights are great, as you'd expect from a game of this quality. Even the opening boss fight against who we later find out is Baldur, though I won't lie, when I first saw him I was sure he'd be Loki. But anyways, it was a great way to show us what we were in for. The real bosses in this game, however, are the Valkyries in my opinion. I've had such a blast figuring out how to defeat each one. They all come equipped with their own unique abilities, so figuring out each one's pattern is always a fun challenge when I come across a new one. Kratos and Atreus use the Bifrost to travel between the realms they need to visit to complete their journey. Niflheim and Muspelheim are optional. You can only unlock travel to them after picking up enough language ciphers found throughout the world. Each of those two offers their own challenges to complete for epic rewards. The other three you visit are for the story, and don't offer as much side content, if any, as the two optional realms. However, each realm feels unique, and I can't wait to explore the other realms that were locked off by Odin in the game's inevitable sequel. God of War's cast of characters isn't very long, and there really isn't a weak link among them, except maybe Thor's kids Magni and Modi. Even then, I'd only really consider them weak links because we didn't get enough time with them. Everyone else was awesome, especially the dwarven blacksmith brothers Brock and Sindri. The foul-mouthed Brock had me cracking up every time I ran into him.
You gotta handle her special, or she'll wreck beyond fixing. I can enhance her for you right now if it so pleases you, son of a bitch. So what say you? Ah!
And the germophobic Sindri was great as well.
Do not undo his work. Improve upon it only.
Yeah, but can you put it down over there? That handle is
No.
filthy. Okay then. I will just... Oh. Oh.
I also really enjoyed their side quest art. Just more proof that the writing in this game is fantastic, as it made me care about a feud between two brothers whose real purpose was, let's be honest, only to fix my armor and weapons.
Oh, quit your grinning. It's downright unsettling.
It's just nice to see you together.
Another standout is Mimir, who's a talking head and sort of becomes the comic relief and local encyclopedia as you progress into your journey. When you're traveling around Midgard via boat, he tells these great stories that expand the lore, and I loved all of them. Because he stops telling the stories when you dock the boat, I'd sometimes find myself just sitting and listening because I didn't want a certain story to end.
Groa knew Odin as a long-time patron of her services, and so she welcomed him into her library as a friend. What she did not know...
God of War isn't flawless, though my complaints are inconsequential to my overall enjoyment of the game. The fast travel is a bit annoying. I get it. The world between worlds is essentially a loading screen while maintaining the single camera shot feel of the game, and I didn't mind it at first. But now that I finished the game and I'm trying to 100% everything, it just seems like it's taking a bit too long, and I'd prefer if I got a loading screen and I was just there. My next complaint is similar. The climbing is slow as hell in this game, especially since a lot of the game is Metroidvania where you're going back and retreading old territory. It just gets really tedious during some of these parts. I don't know what it is, I just feel like a god should be able to climb a little bit faster. The world map could probably use a little work as well, but there isn't really any major complaints I can think of besides that. Overall, this game is a masterpiece. It's a great character piece about Kratos learning to be a father and Atreus learning to be a god. There are so many epic moments in this game, but it's the small, intimate moments that really stood out. Like when Kratos reaches out to comfort his son and then thinks better of it.
Wish Mom was here to see it.
Or the payoff at the end when Kratos finally acknowledges Atreus as his son as they're spreading his mother's ashes across Jotunheim.
Father.
No. We do it together. Son.
I can't recommend this game enough. It surpassed The Witcher 3 as my favorite game of this generation, and it's sitting pretty high on my all-time list. Despite its flaws, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 10 out of 10. Thanks for watching, guys, and please, go check out this game.